So now we're going to look at a couple of homework problems where we are solving for an indicated variable. And so we're going to start with one that is pretty easy. We have the equation P is equal to A plus B plus 4C. And we're being asked to solve for A, which means that we want to get A by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do is to go ahead and subtract a B from both sides. Now in doing that, the P and the B are not like terms, so I can't really combine them. I'm just going to write them next to each other. And then I'll have an A plus 4C left on the right. Now remember that you're solving for A, so you want to have A by itself, and so we need to get rid of the 4C, and so I'm going to subtract it off. And again, 4C is not a like term with either the P or the B. So I really can't do anything other than just write them side by side. But this is going to be our answer. This is an equation that has been solved for A. We see that we have A by itself on one side, and we have all the other variables on the other side. Okay, so for our next example, this one is a little bit more difficult. We're being asked to solve this equation for H. And so we have, just write it down, we have S is equal to 4LW plus 4WH plus 5HL. So we're going to start by separating things that have an H and things that don't. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 4LW, and since it doesn't have an H, I'm going to subtract it off of both sides. And again, these are not really like terms, so we'll just write them side by side. And on the right, we're going to be left with the two terms that have H's in them. Okay, so notice that now on the left-hand side, we have the terms that don't have an H. And on the right-hand side, we have the terms that do have an H. So the next thing I'm going to do is on these two terms on the right where we have the H's, I'm going to go ahead and factor out an H out of those two terms. So in other words, I'm going to pull an H out of this first term, and that is going to leave me a 4W. And when I pull an H out of the second term, that's going to leave me a 5 and an L. Now, my goal is to solve for H, and so I need to get rid of this parenthesis part on the right-hand side. And so since that is multiplied onto the H, I'm going to divide it off. And I'll divide both sides by that. And so that will give me my expression for H. So now I can say that S minus 4LW divided by 4W minus 5L is equal to H. Okay, so for our last problem, we have X is equal to AB minus AK squared, and we want to solve it for A. And so we're going to do the same thing in this problem that we did in the last one. We're going to take the two terms that have A's in them that appear on the right-hand side, and we're going to factor out an A. So I am going to pull an A to the front of these two terms. So if I take an A out of the AB term, that's going to just leave me with B. And if I take an A out of the AK squared term, that's going to leave me K squared. Okay, so once that A has been pulled to the front, then we need to get rid of the part in parentheses so that the A will be by itself. And we can do that by using division. So I'm going to divide both sides by B minus K squared. And that should do it for me. So now I have X over B minus K squared is equivalent to A.